Let's bring our palms together at our heart center and close your eyes. Start to take a very deep breath in from the tip of your tailbone up to the crown of your head, and a long breath out. Now, bring your awareness to the space between your eyebrows on your next inhalation. So bring your awareness to your mind, and then exhale. And then bring your awareness to your heart space and the energy around the beating of your heart, and breathe in and breathe out. Release the hands and open up your eyes, and welcome to Astro Yoga Chat. I am Kate.
I'm Natalie. Hello. So we have arrived at the 11th sign of the Zodiac, which is Aquarius. It's fixed air. And in traditional astrology, we connect words with it with being eccentric or rebellious, the outcast, being very individualistic, also having humanitarian interests, liking the odd or the unusual, and being futuristic. And when we look at evolutionary astrology, um, it has to do with fragmentation. So something in your life is happening, and certain parts of you are splitting up, and you don't feel whole again. And through your journey in life, through all your experiences, you have to learn how to reintegrate all these parts. So this is really interesting. So it's about fragmentation, and it's also about the process of individuation. So who are you? What's your uniqueness? What's your creative expression? So yeah, individuation, the individuation process.
Very interesting, because I just thought of, so I don't know if you've ever read Plato's Symposium, but I'm very much into also Greek mythology. I'm Greek, so, but also I just love mythology. When I was younger, being in Greek school, listening about the gods and Zeus and their rituals just made me so happy, I think, because it woke up a part of my spirituality that said, yeah, like it doesn't always look a certain way that you think it's going to look. But in Plato's Symposium, there's a part of the story where at some point humans became very, very powerful because they were connected. Two people were connected together. And whether it was a man and man, a woman and a man, a woman and woman, it was just, but we are connected. And the gods were getting really upset because they weren't doing their rituals. They weren't giving their offerings to the gods. So Zeus comes down with his lightning bolt and puts it down into the earth and splits everyone in half. So now everyone is scrambling to find their other half. And they're moving through life searching for something that once made them feel whole. Isn't that cool? Yeah.
So I mean, we're not talking about soulmates, but your own soul, that's something that is actually whole, and just the experience here on earth. You feel like certain aspects of yourself you were not allowed to show when you're a child or whatever, and that's why you push them away. That has a little bit to do with like shadow work also, right? Like in psychology. So what you pushed away is like bothering you now because you haven't integrated it. Yes,
Exactly.
it's
It's like you,
so.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you haven't learned how to use it yet. You haven't learned how to make it part of your life because you've been trying so hard to, keep it behind the curtains. Where in shadow work, we talk about bringing what's behind the curtains on stage with you, so that way you become more powerful.
Yes, and shining light onto like all these dark aspects. Yes.
Mm.
So of course in yoga it's like, it's not just a physical practice, but it's always like a connection to your soul, because like all the thoughts we have and all the habits and everything that just comes from the ego, right? So when you have an ego driven life, sometimes the soul is not really agreeing with it because the ego gets stuck, it doesn't like change and all of this. So when you do your yoga, you always connect to your soul, and then maybe you find certain parts that the ego pushed away, and you get a way to connect to the wholeness or your uniqueness again.
Mhm. In yoga, we work in this layered system of they're called the koshas. And you have your physical body, which is your first layer. Then you have your energetic body, your second layer. Your third layer is your mental mind. Then it goes to your intuition, and then it goes to your ananda, your bliss, your soul. So learning how to navigate and also live and breathe and and just experience life through all your different layers creates a much more this like connection. So that way your mind isn't, or your ego, as you mentioned, isn't what's guiding you. You know, our souls, there's lessons to be learned in this lifetime that our souls want us to experience. And not, we're not saying that these lessons are going to feel great or that these challenges are going to feel like fantastic. But if you're constantly moving just from the mind space of thinking, why is this happening to me? Oh, this life is so mean to me and all this stuff. Well, what if this is something your soul is asking you to awaken to? So,
Yes, it
yeah.
feels very much like the soul is giving lessons. I mean, also when you would like think about obstacles or like on a physical level, you can have injuries, like then on the energetic. I mean, sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. You're not always like the same way energetically, then mentally too, but also like the emotions, right? They are like fluctuating all the time. And then your intuition, which is like, it seems to me, which is maybe more like a stable part, but often the intuition is saying something and then the mind is like dismissing it, like, "Ah, yeah, well, I'm not going to listen to this right now." Right? So with all these issues, it feels like the soul is like, like knocking and wanting to wake you up, like there's an issue, go within, listen to yourself, what's going on.
Yep.
And maybe like the more you are connected to your soul, maybe the life gets a little bit more stable. Like I was listening to this podcast before, and he was like, well, the soul's lessons are there, but if you know what the lessons are and you live according to those, the fluctuations are not that big. So and yoga is definitely one of the means of how to like go along that path already.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you take everything in yoga breath by breath. You take everything in yoga step by step. So if the mind pulls you into the future and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get from this place to that place? The mind wants to control it. And then you don't feel your footing, you don't feel your grounding. If like in yoga, if you want to transition from one physical posture to another physical posture, it takes your focus, it takes your strength, it takes time to build all that up. And then if you think about also your spiritual practice, it takes time to be able to sit in a meditation. It takes time and also to meditate, maybe not the word correctly, but to meditate with I don't know if the word is like results, or to actually break through something, and all of this just takes one step at a time.
My meditation training in 2019 in New York, the teacher said, because like when you start first meditating like that weekend, that it was like the most amazing meditations because there's so many people and everybody's connected. So you go really deep. And I was like, wow, that's what it is. And she's like, well, when you do it alone by yourself, the experience is not necessarily going to be like this, not that strong because you're doing it alone. And she's like, but those meditations where like nothing happens and you're sitting there for 20 minutes and you feel like you're struggling, but you're sitting there and you're doing it. And she's like, those are the blessed ones, because that's the journey without the result, maybe. But, that's part of what we have to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think about that. So in my morning meditations, there are times when something will come to me or something will unlock, or there'll be a there'll be like a next step that happened that's amazing. But for almost 99.9% of the time, it's just me sitting in my and trying to harness my mind so that way it stays empty and clear. So it's that big glory feeling of like, oh, I've unlocked a secret, or I'm listening to my soul. It might happen like 1% of the time, but when it does happen, it's worth all of those hours of sitting, um, because you realize that everything is possible.
And maybe also like going back to this uniqueness that Aquarius has, which like we're so conditioned by society, our upbringing, everything. There's like a correct way to do something, and we do it like this, and whatever tradition wants it to be like that. So like the older you become, like the more you actually question those things, and then like through experiences you find like, well, how would I like to do things? Like, you
Mhm.
want to have like a traditional career or work in a different field, or have like a traditional marriage, or like live in a different kind of relationship situation. So, and this is really what Aquarius is about. It is connected to people, but it allows other people to be also unique, and it is unique itself. It's not like everybody has to be the same way, like in Capricorn. Everybody has to obey the same rules and be in a certain way. It's liberal. It's like you can be yourself, but I'm gonna be myself too.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And Aquarius is really getting important right now because last year in March, Pluto started to transition. Oh, we're getting a thunderstorm. Maybe you can hear it. And Pluto started to transition from Capricorn into Aquarius. It was just there for a few weeks. And this year we had it since January in Aquarius, and then it will just drop back September, October, November into Capricorn. But then it will stay after that, mid of November, for 20 years in Aquarius. And Pluto is always like this huge focus, and where we have to like change and transform, transmute. And it's all about humanitarian aspects. It's like all these old structures, governmental things, and how businesses and all of that used to work. That's all collapsing right now. All the old ways are dying. And there's like a lot of scandals coming up that, the old ways were not really that good. And the new way for the next 20 years will be, it's like people, being in certain groups, and, what people think will be more important because it's about the masses, people. How can you live, in an individualistic way, in a unique way? What is unique about you? This will be so much more important than just following, one path.
That's so cool. I love that because we all know that when you are following your own soul's journey and you are following your own path, it can feel quite alienating because you're not then going with the masses, right? You're not doing what everyone else is doing. You have to fight for what you need to do in your life. And I think if that becomes more uh like a universal acceptance, then people can really express themselves and like follow their life's path a lot easier without the rules and the constitutions and the boxes and the stuff that keeps us all, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way, you got to be like this, you got to look like this, you got to do this by this age, do it by that age. I love it now. It's, I think when I was going to high school, they had um they had a lot of courses for people to learn how to use their hands, whether it was being a mechanic or a plumber or hairdresser or something, because not everyone is made to sit there and read books and be a lawyer or a doctor, or that's not what everybody's meant to be doing. I mean, I don't know about you, but my mechanic is like high on my list because when my car happens to my car, I take it to my mechanic who knows exactly how to help me and fix my vehicle. So that's super important in life. I think that I just wish that more people will understand that you don't have to follow a certain path in order for you to be successful. Um, and hopefully this feeling of Aquarius like just shows everybody to like find your own version of what being successful is.
Yeah, and like on the yoga path, we start to listen to our soul, like what are the needs, what is the soul asking for, when is the soul happy. I just, took a dance class this week again. I was like, "Ah, it's always the thing I love most, so my soul is really happy doing it. My soul is always happy, when I'm creative. So I have Pluto in the fifth house from my son, so it's about being creative. But yeah.
Maybe that could be some of the homework of like, just think for yourself, what situations are you in that make you feel the happiest? Because that's perhaps your direct guideline or your direct zip line or door to listen to your intuition and to your soul. Like what sparks up all your little cells in your body, your trillions of cells with happiness feeling, and then not to say do more of that, but just be mindful of that. Like that's something to be aware of.
And maybe if you dare to go really, really deep, what parts of yourself you don't like so much and you pushed away, and can you connect it to life where there's like instances happening where your soul is asking for you to reintegrate those parts because they are necessary, you also need them.
I like that. That's a good one. Awesome. Shall we close it off? Do you think?
Mhm.
Yeah? Okay, let's bring our palms together at our heart. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here with us. And take the deepest breath in and fill up your rib cage, fill up your lungs. Just let the lungs expand the rib cage. So it's the tissues of your lungs. Keep breathing in, and then let it out. And then release your hands and open up your eyes. And thank you very much for being here.
Namaste.